Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make a lemon cheesecake. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I have another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe to share with you. This one was highly requested. So many of you wanted to turn my classic cheesecake into a lemon version, and after many attempts, I have finally cracked the code. Now, I wanted a completely natural lemon flavor for this cheesecake, so that meant no extracts or anything like that. So what I found was that we really need to start with lemon curd as a base. So we're going to be making a simple, it's not exactly lemon curd, but it's quite similar to a lemon curd. We're going to start with that. Now we're going to need a half cup of lemon juice for this recipe. Of course, for the best flavor, I recommend using real lemons and squeezing your own juice. I usually find that I need 2 to 3 in order to get the half cup. So we'll just cut these in half, and then I'm just going to squeeze as much juice out of them as I possibly can. And this curd or curd-esque base for our cheesecake is going to need to be cooked on the stovetop, so I'm just going to add this into a small saucepan. And we're also going to be using 3 egg yolks for this recipe. Best way to get the yolk separated from the egg white is to crack your egg and just pass the yolk back and forth between the egg halves until the white falls out, and then we'll just toss this in with our lemon juice. Now we'll also add 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and just a 1/4 teaspoon of table salt. And we'll whisk all these ingredients together. You want to get them nicely combined. You want to make sure you break up those egg yolks especially. Now next you're going to need 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter for this recipe. I've cut this into 4 pieces. We'll just add this into the saucepan as well. We'll go ahead and take this over to the stovetop. All right, now turn your stovetop heat to medium-low, and we are going to whisk this constantly until the butter is completely melted. All right, so once the butter is melted, you want to continue to stir constantly until the mixture begins to thicken. So the best way to tell that this mixture is done cooking is it's going to thicken a little bit. You'll notice that it becomes a bit more opaque, and then I really know it's time to take it off the heat when it starts to just begin to bubble. So once you see this happening right here, it's kind of simmering a little bit just below the surface, we're going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to keep whisking it. And then we're going to run this through a fine mesh strainer. Now the point of doing this is because we want to make sure that any bits of egg that might have accidentally gotten cooked while we were cooking the curd or any other impurities are getting caught in this strainer. We do not want them in our curd because we don't want them in our cheesecake. All right, so you can see we caught a couple things here, and we'll just discard this. Now, this lemon curd is obviously really hot right now. We don't want to add it to a cheesecake batter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this in the fridge until it is completely cooled. You don't want to go any further with this until it is no longer warm to the touch. Now, while that's cooling, I like to go ahead and preheat my oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we can go ahead and make our graham cracker crust. Now to make our crust, I have 1.5 cups of graham cracker crumbs here, and we're going to add 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, firmly packed, and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Now we'll just stir these together. I like to just use a fork and kind of break up the brown sugar while I'm doing that. You want to get everything nicely incorporated. And now I have 5 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter here. I'm just going to add this in with my graham cracker crumbs, and then I'm just going to toss everything together until the mixture, like all of the graham cracker crumbs in here, are lightly coated with the butter. Everything should look nice and moist. All right, this looks pretty good. So now I'm going to grab my cheesecake pan. This is a 9-inch springform pan. I'll make sure to link to this in the description in case you don't already have one, but springform pan is really best anytime you're making a cheesecake. Now I'm just gonna add my graham cracker crumbs into this pan, and then I'm going to want to press them into the bottom of the pan and up the sides of this pan as well. Now I just start by using my spatula or a spoon, and then I like to grab either a measuring cup or a small drinking glass, and I'm just going to use this to firmly press the graham cracker crumbs into the bottom of the pan and up the side. Now, one thing I want to note is that I'm pressing this crust pretty high up the pan. One thing I found is that if the crust in the pan is up higher than the cheesecake batter, this is going to be great for keeping your cheesecake from cracking. The reason for that is this crust is just going to shrink with the cheesecake as it cools. It's going to remove any tension from the cheesecake being baked to the side of the pan, and it's just going to cool beautifully, and you shouldn't have any cracks. So that means we're going pretty high up the pan, pretty much as high as you can. All right, this looks beautiful, so I'm just going to set this aside, and I'm going to check on my lemon curd. Now, if it's cooled completely, as mine has, I'm going to go ahead and make my cheesecake batter. Now in a large mixing bowl, we're going to combine 24 ounces of softened cream cheese. Now you'll notice I'm using the brick style cream cheese. This is full fat. That's what I recommend anytime you are making a cheesecake. Now we'll also add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. And you could certainly use a stand mixer for today's recipe if you'd like, but today I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer. And I'll use this to cream everything together until it's smooth and well combined. Now in order to ensure a lump-free cheesecake, I do like to frequently pause and scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl as I'm going through the process of making this batter, just to make sure there are no lumps hiding anywhere. All right, this is looking pretty good. So now I'm going to grab my lemon curd mixture and I'm just going to gradually add this into my mixing bowl while I'm stirring everything together. Use my spatula because I want to make sure I get everything mixed in there. I don't want to lose any of that lemon flavor. And we're just going to stir until everything is completely combined. Again, you want your batter to be nice and smooth. All right, now the next thing that we need for today's recipe is 2 large eggs. Now we'll add these to our batter one at a time, and I am going to lightly beat them with my fork just to beat them up a little bit before I add them into the batter. Now, if you recall from my classic cheesecake recipe, you'll know that you really do not want to overmix the eggs once you add them, because that's another factor that can not only contribute to cracks, but it can kind of mess with the consistency of your cheesecake. So we want to just stir these eggs in just until they're completely combined. Now we'll add the second one. All right, now this is looking pretty great, so I'm just going to check it one more time by scraping the sides and bottom of the bowl because I just want to make sure everything's nice and uniform. All right, now let's go ahead and grab our springform pan and we can just pour our batter evenly into the pan. Still using my mini spatula, this saves me a dish. All right, now I'm just going to use my spatula to smooth the surface. And as you can see, I did a good job with the crust because it is higher than the batter. This is such a great tip for keeping the cheesecake from cracking. Now we'll go ahead and take this over to our 325° Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to need to bake for about 40 to 45 minutes. Now once the cheesecake is finished baking, it should still be a little bit jiggly if you jostle it. I want to show you guys exactly what that looks like. You can see it doesn't look super liquidy, it's not quite as jiggly as Jell-O, but it's not completely set. Now this is perfect. This is what a perfectly baked cheesecake looks like, so we're going to go ahead and let that cool to room temperature. Now once your lemon cheesecake is cool to room temperature, it's still not done. You're going to need to pop it in the fridge and let it chill for about another 6 hours, preferably overnight before you slice it. Fortunately, I did prepare a cheesecake yesterday, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that out so we can slice into it for you. Now, while this cheesecake is great and tart and wonderful served just as it is, one thing I like to do to kind of temper the tartness, but it also helps it shine a little bit more, is I like to make a half batch of my homemade whipped cream, which I will link to as well. And then I just like to pipe this around the border of the cheesecake. And I'm just using my Ateco 848 tip, my favorite piping tip, to do this. All right, now we can go ahead and dig in. And look at how smooth and creamy that is. I hope you guys can see that on camera because this just looks amazing. Well, that is how easy it is to make my lemon cheesecake. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe. And if you try this one out at home, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. You're going to love this one.